After the reveal of Kartathea and Lupa, a lot of people are wondering, should I still be pulling for Ciaccona? Well, that's what I'm going to be answering in today's video, by looking at Ciaccona's biggest pros and cons. First of all, one of Ciaccona's biggest and best advantages is the fact that she is our premium Aero Erosion applicant. Being our premium Aero Erosion character means that Ciaccona is going to be the answer for essentially any Aero Erosion team into the future. You see, we've kind of already gotten a taste of how important Ciaccona is going to be soon, without Ciaccona even being out. That being through the synergy with Phoebe and Zani. You see, Phoebe and Zani are incredibly synergistic together. So synergistic, in fact, that Zani feels infinitely worse to play if you do not have Phoebe on your team. And while Zani definitely cannot clear without Phoebe, it's definitely a large downgrade. And we all know Phoebe is the premium Frazzle character. So Ciaccona, in all of her Aero Erosion glory, is going to be the Aero version of Phoebe. We don't have the Aero Erosion DPS character yet, but it was confirmed that Kartathea is going to be an Aero Sword character. And considering the fact that we already have a healer for the Aero Erosion team, and Ciaccona is our sub DPS, chances are Kartathea is going to be an Aero Erosion main DPS to complete the Aero Erosion team. Kartathea is the Sentinel Resonator for Raguna. There's a very high chance that she is going to end up being one of the strongest characters in the entire game. So having Ciaccona with her just means she is going to absolutely obliterate all of the content that gets in her way, and any future Aero Erosion characters can definitely stand to use a Ciaccona in their team as well. For the next positive, Ciaccona is an incredibly versatile character because not only is she good with Aero Erosion, she's also good for Frazzle. Yep, we have an Aero character who applies Frazzle. I know, it's kinda weird, I literally said in my speculation video for her that this wasn't gonna happen, but here we are. Ciaccona is capable of applying Frazzle almost as much as she is capable of applying Aero Erosion. Ciaccona's ultimate can choose between applying Frazzle or Aero Erosion. So if you're playing Ciaccona in a team with Phoebe or Zani, you will be applying Frazzle, so in Absolution Phoebe's case you're able to get the damage amplification on her heavy attack, and for Zani's case you're able to generate more Blaze. This means that even if you are not planning on getting Kartathea, Ciaccona can have some very good value on your account. Ciaccona opens up a lot of team options for Phoebe, primarily with Verena or Shorekeeper, or you could even run more Teffy with Ciaccona. You could even just run both of the Frazzle applicants, with Ciaccona and Spectrover working together. The possibilities truly are endless now that Ciaccona is here to be a third Frazzle applicant. This is primarily a buff to Phoebe. It's not really a buff for Zani, as Phoebe is still her best teammate. However, there is a unique synergy here, being the fact that Ciaccona is capable of applying Frazzle over time, meaning the fact that technically she is capable of generating more Blaze than Phoebe is, but it's not going to be as good as Phoebe's buffing. Another big plus for Ciaccona is the fact that she is capable of applying Frazzle in multi-wave. Yep, that's right. Phoebe's biggest issue, the fact that her damage in multi-wave is kind of lackluster, is being entirely mitigated with Ciaccona. Ciaccona's ultimate will apply Frazzle over time, ticking approximately once every 1.5 seconds for up to 20 times. This means that within Whimpering Wastes, Phoebe is guaranteed to use Ciaccona, because the biggest issue Phoebe used to have in this game mode is that you had to constantly swap back into Rover to apply more Frazzle, and if you did not have their Liberation, the AoE on this application would be incredibly mediocre. But because Ciaccona is capable of applying Frazzle in a good AoE while also being over time, she is buffing Phoebe to astronomical heights within the Whimpering Wastes game mode, making her not only one of the best DPSs for Tower, but also one of the best DPSs for Whimpering Wastes, and overall raising her value through the stratosphere. And if Kartathea does end up being an Aero Erosion DPS, getting Ciaccona will mean that even if Kartathea has the same restrictions as Phoebe, you will still not be struggling in multi-wave or in AoE. Another big positive for Ciaccona is that she can serve as a Generalist Aero damage buffer. You see, Ciaccona within her basic attacks has an effect that is capable of buffing Aero damage for the team by 24%. She also has a signature weapon that's capable of reducing the Aero resistance of enemies by 10%. You can also just run Static Mist, but that's beside the point. These Generalist Aero buffs allow Ciaccona to be an option for future Aero DPS characters as well, even if they do not work with Aero Erosion even in the slightest. These Generalist Aero buffs just means that Ciaccona has an extra use case that she can fulfill, even if you do not plan to invest into Aero Erosion as a team archetype. Take for example GN. While it would be better to run more Teffy with him, running Ciaccona with him is still a pretty good idea, especially since you can also slot an Aero Rover in this team, meaning that both your Shorekeeper and your Mortefi are free to be used in other teams if they are needed there. Obviously, GN is not the best example, considering the fact that he has Mortefi, who's a 4-star teammate, but for future Aero DPS characters, it can be a pretty useful niche to occupy. Another positive in Ciaccona's kit is the fact that she has grouping. Grouping is a thing that usually isn't talked about much in Wuthering Waves, but it still is a really nice attribute to have in your kit. You see, when you're capable of grouping enemies, especially for Whimpering Wastes, you're capable of dealing with large hordes of enemies a lot faster. Shorekeeper also has grouping within her kit. However, the primary flaw that Shorekeeper has with her grouping is the fact that it has a pretty small range. Another negative about Shorekeeper's grouping is the fact that it happens during her rotation. And because Shorekeeper is the first character in the rotation, there's a very good chance that by the time you get to your actual DPS, the enemies will have already ungrouped themselves. This happens a lot with the enemies from the Fraxidus. However, because Ciaccona is the second character in the team, and her grouping is near the ending of her rotation, it will have a lot more impact on your DPS's field time, meaning that you are capable of dealing with hordes, even if your DPS is not exactly built to take care of AoE. And then one more positive for Ciaccona is the fact that she is not reliant on her signature weapon. Because she is a pistol character, she is very capable of running the standard weapon Static Mist, which is in my opinion one of the best standard banner weapons. And it is in my opinion going to have the most longevity of all the standard weapons. You see, Static Mist has the standard 24.3% crit rate and 587 base attack, as well as energy regen within its passive, which are all stats that Ciaccona really appreciates. It's also capable of buffing the next character's attack by 10%, which is a nice universal bonus that Ciaccona can use for any type of DPS. Her own signature weapon just has Aero Resistance Shred, which only works for Aero teams, but Static Mist is capable of buffing anyone. Now it's time to talk about negatives. I don't really think Ciaccona has that many, to be honest. She's just a well-designed character that doesn't have that many flaws. But I guess if I had to mention one thing, it would be that it takes quite a long time for Ciaccona to actually get maximum stacks on either of the DOTs that she applies. During her field time, Ciaccona will be applying 3 stacks of Aero Erosion, which is technically the cap. But because most teams that care about Aero Erosion are most likely going to be running the Aero Rover as well, you're going to need 3 additional procs, which will take almost 5 seconds of her ultimate. This is a pretty large amount of time to wait, meaning that in total you're going to have to wait around 11 seconds to actually get your max stacks for Aero Erosion. And it gets a lot worse when you look at the Frazzle side of things, because Frazzle's cap is 10. Ciaccona doesn't even apply any Frazzle during her own field time, meaning that you have to wait 15 whole seconds to actually have 10 stacks of Frazzle on the enemy. This is kind of a bummer, because the Eternal Radiance set has additional buffs for when the enemy has 10 Frazzle stacks, meaning that if you're on your first rotation and you are not running Spectre Rover in your team, you're most likely not going to be capable of getting this buff on your Phoebe or your Zani. Speaking of Zani, the next con is the fact that Ciaccona is not going to be the savior for all of you Phoebe skippers. You see, Ciaccona, while she is able to match up with Phoebe in terms of Frazzle application, does not have all of the benefits Phoebe has. Phoebe is strong because she's able to amplify Spectro Frazzle damage, which Ciaccona does not do. So while Ciaccona will be your second best bet for a Zani team, she is not going to be the one to save your Zani from not having Phoebe. It's going to be an upgrade, but don't expect something massive. So, are you going to be pulling for Ciaccona? I know I am. I need to make the multi-way Phoebe agenda real after all. Also, I think Ciaccona is just an incredibly well-designed kit. There's no real flaws that she has outside of superficial stuff. So honestly, at least one character this patch was well-designed. Like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. And if you have any questions, be sure to join my Discord, which is linked in the description. I'm pretty active in there, so if you ask me a question there, there's going to be a pretty good chance I'll answer. But that'll be it from me. Peace.